The Journey of Mia. In a quaint restaurant nestled in the heart of a European city, the evening's ambience is set with the clinking of cutlery and the murmur of patrons. Here, at La Luz Dorada, the staff are enjoying a rare moment of ease, as the owner, Mr. Javier, is absent. While disposing of trash outside, Marco, a waiter, encounters a small girl, no more than 10, sitting on the cold pavement. She's wrapped in tattered clothes, clutching a guitar as worn as her spirit. Her eyes, wide with a mix of hope and fear, meet his. "Do you have anything to eat?" she asks, her voice almost a whisper against the night air. Marco knows that Mr. Javier would never approve, but something in her gaze compels him. "If you come inside and sing something, I'll get you a plate of food," he offers. With a shy smile, she enters, her fingers barely gripping her guitar. Marco leads her to a quiet corner. She begins to sing, her voice a tender, haunting melody that silences the room. Laughter and chatter fade as every patron turns to watch this barefoot child perform. When she finishes, applause rings out, some even standing to leave coins at her feet. As she eats with enthusiasm, the mood is shattered by Mr. Javier's stern voice from the doorway. "What's happening here?" Marco, trying to calm the situation, explains, she just wanted some food. She sang for the customers, and everyone loved it. Loved it? This isn't a circus, it's a classy restaurant. Mr. Javier snaps, his gaze falling on the girl. "You, get out. I don't want beggars in my establishment." Before she can leave, a regular, Mrs. Helena, speaks up. "Wait, Mr. Javier, this girl has more talent than any music you've ever played here. Don't you think that's worth something?" Murmurs of agreement rise from the crowd. Mr. Javier hesitates but his pride wins out. "That doesn't matter. This is my place, and I decide what happens here." He then turns to Marco, "And you, go get your things. You're fired." The girl, now named Mia, steps forward, her small voice firm. "Don't fire him, please. It was my fault, he just wanted to help me." Mr. Javier laughs dryly, "You don't understand how things work, child. Good intentions don't pay the bills." Marco, swallowing his anger, removes his apron, placing it on the counter. "So that's it, years of work thrown away for a plate of food?" But before Mr. Javier can retort, another patron, a well-dressed man, stands up. "Wait a moment, Mr. Javier. My name is Alejandro Martinez, a music producer. I believe this night could mark a turning point for everyone here." The room waits, suspended in anticipation. This girl has an extraordinary talent, and you, Mr. Javier, should think twice before dismissing her or your employee. I have a proposal that could benefit us all. Mr. Javier, skeptical yet curious, asks, "A proposal? What are you suggesting, Mr. Martinez?" Alejandro smooths his tie, calm in his proposal. "I suggest you embrace the unexpected." Her music transformed this ordinary evening into something memorable. Imagine La Luz Dorada becoming known for discovering new talent. Mr. Javier scoffs, "A restaurant isn't for street performances." "Perhaps not for street performances," Alejandro counters, "but what if you host a weekly event? It could become a unique attraction, drawing locals and tourists alike." The customers start murmuring in agreement. Marco, still holding his apron, watches in disbelief as the conversation shifts. "And why should I trust you?" Mr. Javier asks, his hesitation thinly veiled. "Because I recognize potential," Alejandro replies, turning to Mia, "What's your name, little one?" "Mia," she replies, hugging her guitar. "Mia, would you sing one more song? Show Mr. Javier what he's about to lose." With Marco's nod of encouragement, Mia plays again, her choice a melancholic melody that seems to carry the weight of a life beyond her years. The room falls into a deep silence, then erupts in applause, some patrons even standing for an ovation. Mr. Javier, though still stern, can't hide a flicker of emotion. "Perhaps I was hasty," he murmurs. Alejandro smiles, a wise reconsideration. "Now, let's talk business." Before Mr. Javier can respond, Mia speaks up, "I don't want money for myself. I just want to sing and eat." Her simple request brings a profound silence. Marco steps forward, "And I'll help any way I can, without pay if necessary." Mr. Javier, aware the situation has slipped beyond his control, sighs. "All right, let's try one special night as a test, but only because we've got everyone's attention." Alejandro claps, "Excellent decision. Let's make history." The news spreads like wildfire, and soon, makeshift posters adorn the city's walls. On the night of the event, La Luz Dorada is transformed with lights and a small stage. Marco, rehired for the occasion, moves among the guests with renewed vigor, occasionally checking on Mia backstage, who's adjusting her guitar strings with nervous hands. "You're going to rock it, Mia," Marco reassures her. "Everyone's here for you." Mia looks up, her face pale. "What if I mess up? What if they don't like it? Remember the first time you sang here? Everyone stopped to listen. That wasn't luck, it was because you have something special," Marco says. Alejandro joins them, offering a supportive look. "Ready, little star." Mia takes a deep breath and nods. Mr. Javier calls for the audience's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to La Luz Dorada. Tonight is a bit different as we have something special to share. Please welcome our young talent, Mia." The applause is warm, and Mia steps onto the stage, her hands trembling. She looks out at the sea of faces, familiar and new, then begins to play. The music is unlike anything heard before, her voice weaving through the notes with raw emotion, capturing everyone's heart. When the last note fades, there's a moment of silence before the room explodes into cheers. Mr. Javier, standing beside Alejandro, seems genuinely surprised. Backstage, Mia, tears in her eyes but smiling, is embraced by Marco. However, the night takes an unexpected turn with the arrival of a thin woman, dressed in rags, at the restaurant's entrance. "Mama!" Mia exclaims, dropping her guitar and running to her. The room watches in silence as mother and daughter reunite, tears streaming as they hold each other. "I didn't know you had family," Marco whispers to Alejandro, while Mr. Javier looks on, visibly uncomfortable with the public display. Mia's mother explains her absence, the threats she faced, and her desperate search for her daughter. Mia shares her own struggles, singing in the streets to survive. Alejandro steps in, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Mia is an extraordinary girl. Tonight, she moved everyone here. Don't you think that talent deserves to be nurtured?" Her mother, wary, asks, "Who are you?" "I'm Alejandro Martinez, a music producer. I'm willing to help your daughter build a career, but that depends on you." Mia, still holding her mother's hand, looks hopeful. "Mama, I want to sing. I want to stay here. They helped me when no one else did." Her mother, after a moment, agrees, "If that's what you want, then I'll support you." Mr. Javier, now concerned about the implications for his restaurant, interjects, "And what does this mean for my business? I can't turn this into a soap opera." Alejandro smiles, "It means you have a unique opportunity. Mia can sing here regularly, and that will attract more customers." Mr. Javier weighs the decision, finally conceding, "One night a week. That's all I offer." Mia's smile lights up the room, and she hugs her mother again. Marco pats Alejandro on the shoulder, "You've done the impossible." "No, it was her," Alejandro replies, nodding towards Mia. The night ends with a sense of renewal but also the promise of more challenges ahead. A week later, La Luz Dorada prepares for Mia's first official performance. The stage is enhanced, and Mr. Javier, though still skeptical, ensures everything is perfect. Mia, now dressed in a simple dress gifted by Marco, prepares backstage with her mother by her side. "I'm nervous, Mama," Mia admits. "Don't worry, Mia. That talent is yours, and no one can take that away from you," Marco reassures her. Alejandro enters, holding the night schedule. "Everything's ready. Just do what you do best, they're all here for you." The restaurant is packed, not just with locals but also with tourists and journalists. When Mia performs, her confidence shines through each note, each melody. The audience doesn't just listen, they feel. Backstage, Marco and Alejandro watch with pride, while Mr. Javier, though maintaining his usual demeanor, can't help but be touched by the crowd's reaction. After the performance, Mia's mother embraces her. "You are amazing, my little one." Marco high-fives her. "See, I told you." Meanwhile, Alejandro and Mr. Javier discuss the future. "That girl has something special. You must have noticed that, Javier. It's time to think bigger." Mr. Javier, not one to admit changes easily, replies, "Maybe, but I don't want to turn this place into a concert hall. It doesn't have to be. Think of this as where her career began. The publicity from tonight is already helping," Alejandro insists. As Mia and her mother walk home, Mia looks up at the stars. "Mama, do you think one day I can sing in a bigger place, for lots of people?" Her mother squeezes her hand. "You can do anything, my daughter. And I'll be there to see it happen." Mia's journey was just beginning, but it was marked by resilience, courage, and an undeniable talent promising to take her far beyond the small restaurant. Mia's performances at La Luz Dorada soon became the talk of the town, with Thursday nights turning into a cultural event. Tourists, locals, and even passers-by would stop to listen to the girl with the golden voice. The restaurant thrived like never before, and though Mr. Javier was reluctant to admit it, he began to invest more in these events, enhancing the ambience for Mia's shows. During one particularly crowded evening, Marco approached Alejandro, who was watching Mia with the same enthusiasm as always. "Looks like La Luz Dorada has become the place to be," Marco remarked. "That wouldn't have been possible without her," Alejandro replied, smiling. "Nor without you. Never forget, you gave her her first chance." As they spoke, a distinguished woman entered the restaurant, her demeanor commanding yet elegant. She sat discreetly at a back table but kept her eyes on Mia. After Mia's performance, Mr. Javier whispered to Alejandro, "Seems we've got an important guest tonight." Alejandro's eyes widened as he recognized her. "Sofia Valdez," he whispered back to Mr. Javier. "One of the biggest music producers in the country. If she's here, she's heard about Mia." Alejandro quickly approached Sofia's table. "Miss Valdez, it's an honor to have you here. I'm Alejandro Martinez, Mia's producer." Sofia raised an eyebrow, her smile elegant but ironic. "Her producer," she said. "Well, I must say, I'm impressed. The girl has something that's not easily found." "I'm glad you liked it," Alejandro responded, keeping his composure. "She's incredibly talented, and she's just starting." Sofia's smile widened as she looked towards the stage where Mia was packing up her guitar. "I would like to speak with her." Alejandro led Sofia to Mia, who was chatting with Marco and her mother. Mia visibly tensed at the sight of the well-dressed woman. "Hello, Mia," Sofia began, her voice gentle. "My name is Sofia Valdez. I've heard about you and came to see your talent in person." Mia blinked, unsure of what to say. Her mother squeezed her shoulder encouragingly. "Thank you, Miss Valdez. I just like to sing." Sofia chuckled softly, "Like, my dear. You have something special, something that can take you far beyond this restaurant." Alejandro, sensing the conversation's tone, interjected carefully, "Sofia, if I may ask, are you suggesting something?" "I'm offering an opportunity," Sofia replied. I want Mia to audition for a national talent festival I'm organizing. It'll be her chance to showcase her talent to the entire country." The air seemed to thicken with anticipation. Mia looked at her mother, whose eyes were wide with surprise. Marco smiled but seemed worried. "A festival?" Mia asked, almost in a whisper. "Yes," Sophia confirmed. "Hundreds will hear you, and if all goes well, this could be the start of something big." Mia glanced back at her mother, who held her hands tightly. "What do you think, darling?" Mia took a deep breath, the nervousness evident on her face. She finally looked at Sophia and Alejandro and murmured, "I want to try." Sophia smiled approvingly. "Excellent choice. I'll arrange everything. Get ready, Mia, your life is about to change." Backstage, as the excitement grew, Marco approached Mia, gently saying, "Remember, no matter how far you go, you'll always have a home here." Mia smiled, but inside, the weight of what was to come was palpable. The festival in Seville, organized by Sofia Valdez, was just days away, and Alejandro was meticulous in his preparations. In a small apartment he had rented for Mia and her mother, Alejandro was going over details in his notebook. "All right, Mia," he began, breaking the silence. "Today, we're focusing on your stage presence. It's not just about singing well but how you present yourself." Mia, holding her guitar, voiced her fears, "What if I mess up? I've never sung for so many people before." Her mother, sitting beside her, took her hand firmly. "You've overcome much harder things, my daughter. This is just another step." Alejandro smiled, trying to ease her tension. "Your mother's right. Besides, remember, you're not competing, you're there to tell your story, to share your voice." The journey to Seville was filled with rehearsals and comforting conversations. Alejandro insisted on train travel, believing it would help Mia relax and connect with the moments ahead. "Remember, Mia," he said as the landscape passed by, "this festival is about how you make people feel, not just about you." Upon arriving in Seville, they were greeted by the grandeur of the main theater, an old stone building with intricate details that seemed to intimidate any newcomer. The festival's buzz was palpable, with artists, crew, and Sofia Valdez herself managing the chaos. "Mia!" Sofia exclaimed upon seeing them. "Just in time. We have a room reserved for you. I want you to be focused." Backstage, Mia found a simple yet functional space. She placed her guitar down and took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. Alejandro watched her from a distance, attentive to her emotional state. "Remember what I said, Mia. Sing as if you're back at La Luz Dorada, with Marco serving tables and the customers clapping." The memory brought a shy smile to her face. The night of the festival arrived, the theater packed with an eager crowd and judges at a long table. The host announced, "Next participant, Mia Morales." Hearing her name, Mia's legs felt weak. Alejandro placed a hand on her shoulder, "Breathe. It's time to show who you are." Mia stepped onto the stage, the lights blinding her for a moment. The murmurs of the audience seemed distant. She positioned herself, thought about backing down, but then remembered Marco, her mother, Alejandro, and everyone who believed in her. She began to play, her melody soft and emotional, an original composition about struggle, hope, and belonging. Her voice, filled with emotion, touched every corner of the theater, silencing the audience. When the last note faded, there was a pause, then applause, first timid, then growing until it was deafening. Mia, incredulous, took a small bow. Backstage, Alejandro, her mother, and even Sofia embraced her in celebration. "You did it, Mia," Alejandro laughed, emotional. Sofia, known for her stoicism, seemed genuinely pleased. That was more than a performance, it was art. But while the applause still echoed, Mia knew this was just the beginning. The morning after, Mia woke up in her hotel room, sunlight filtering through the curtains. Her mother was already up, making coffee. Alejandro was on his laptop, typing furiously. "Good morning, Star," he greeted as she sat up. "Believe it or not, you're making headlines." He turned the screen to her, showing articles from local news: Mia Morales enchants Seville, the voice that stopped the festival, and a new name to watch in Spanish music. "I don't know what to say," Mia murmured, still processing her newfound recognition. "You don't need to say anything, just get ready. I've gotten calls from record labels, producers, and event organizers. Everyone wants to work with you," Alejandro explained. Before Mia could respond, her mother handed her a cup of coffee. "It's everything you deserve, my daughter. Every effort, every tough night, it was all worth it." Mia looked at the coffee, feeling a weight in her chest. What if all this changes me? What if I forget where I came from? Alejandro closed his laptop, moving closer. "That's exactly why you'll be fine, because you're worried about that. And as long as you have people like your mother and," he paused, smiling, "Marco by your side, you'll know who you are." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of meetings and negotiations. Sofia led much of the discussions, advising Mia on contracts and rights. "You have an incredible voice, Mia, but remember, this is business. If you don't protect yourself, they'll try to exploit you." Alejandro and Sofia ensured each offer was evaluated carefully. One proposal stood out: an international record label offered a contract including album production and a tour through Europe and Latin America. "This is big, Mia, very big," Alejandro said, laying the papers on the table. "But it also means a lot of time away from Seville, from La Luz Dorada, from your routine." Mia held the documents but didn't respond immediately. She knew success required sacrifices, but leaving the place where it all began felt unsettling. "I need some time to think," she finally said. Back in Seville, Mia sought refuge at La Luz Dorada. The restaurant was as lively as ever, and she was greeted with warm applause. Marco found her at the entrance, grinning. "Welcome back, Star." "Thank you, Marco," she replied, hugging him. "I needed to come back home." Mr. Javier, behind the counter, watched her with a steady gaze, a small smile hidden beneath his stern exterior. "Good to see success hasn't made you forget this place." "I could never forget," Mia replied sincerely. She spent the night mingling with customers, playing music on the small stage, sharing her journey. But the decision about the contract loomed large. At the night's end, as the restaurant began to empty, she sat with Marco at one of the tables. "I got an offer for a tour. It's a chance to reach more people, to grow, but it means being away from here, from you, from my mother, from La Luz Dorada, for a long time," she confessed. Marco sighed, leaning on the table. "Mia, I knew this day would come. You have something special, something the world deserves to hear. I'll miss you, but you're not leaving everything behind, you're just going further, and that's part of it." She smiled, her eyes misty. "How do you always know what to say?" "Because I believe in you." The next morning, Mia met with Alejandro and Sofia to give her answer. "I accept the contract," she said firmly, "but with one condition. I want to start my tour in Seville. I want to do my first big show at La Luz Dorada." Sofia raised an eyebrow, surprised. "A restaurant, Mia? We're talking about a global audience. And that's exactly why I want to start there. That's where it all began, and I want to take that with me wherever I go," Mia explained. Alejandro smiled, satisfied with her decision. "Looks like we have a plan." In the following months, Mia prepared for her new life. La Luz Dorada was transformed into a venue worthy of a big show, with lights, an expanded stage, and a professional crew. The event attracted national attention, with tickets sold out and live streaming to millions. When Mia took the stage that night, she felt the same nervousness as in Seville, but seeing familiar faces, her mother, Marco, Alejandro, and even Mr. Javier, she smiled, picked up her guitar, and began to sing. The song was about roots, gratitude, and never forgetting where you come from. The performance at La Luz Dorada was more than a show, it was a historic event. The restaurant, once a haven for a homeless girl singing for food, was now the debut stage for a rising star. The world watched as Mia captivated audiences with her music and her story. Backstage, Alejandro and Sofia watched with pride. She found the perfect balance, Alejandro remarked, connected to her roots but with her eyes on the future. Sofia nodded, adjusting her glasses as she watched the emotional crowd. It's rare to see this in someone so young. She's going far, but she'll need constant support. After the success of the debut, Mia embarked on her tour across Europe and Latin America. Each city brought new challenges and emotions but reaffirmed her decision to share her music. In Paris, she sang in a historic square, in Amsterdam, she performed in an iconic theater, in Mexico City, the streets were filled with fans celebrating her authenticity. Between shows, Mia made time to call her mother and Marco, keeping her connection to what mattered most. "How are things at La Luz Dorada?" she'd ask. "Same as always, but everyone asks about you," Marco would reply cheerfully. "And guess what? Your name's on the menu now. We created a dessert called Dulce Mia. You always find a way to surprise me," she laughed. During a stop in Buenos Aires, Mia received an unexpected visit. Alejandro walked into her dressing room, holding an envelope. "This is for you," he said, handing it over with a smile. Mia opened it to find a handwritten letter from Mr. Javier. "Mia, when you started singing in my restaurant, I never imagined the impact it would have, not just on La Luz Dorada, but on everyone who passed through here. I want you to know that wherever you go, you'll always have a place here. The world might applaud you, but remember, we were the first to believe in you. Do what you were born to do and come back when you can. Mr. Javier." Mia held the letter, emotion welling up inside her. "I think I'm lucky to have so many amazing people by my side," she said, tears in her eyes. After months on the road, Mia closed her tour in Barcelona, the event broadcast live to millions. Alejandro, Sofia, and her mother were in the audience, joined by special guests from Seville, including Marco and Mr. Javier. "Good evening, Barcelona," Mia said as the crowd applauded. "This song is for everyone who believed in me, especially for those who gave me my first stage." She played a reimagined version of her first song at La Luz Dorada, the big screen behind her showing images of her journey. The crowd stood, applauding loudly, and Mia knew she had touched many hearts. Backstage after the show, Mia was surprised by Marco, Mr. Javier, and her mother, holding flowers, their expressions filled with pride. "You were amazing, Mia," Marco said, handing her a bouquet. Mr. Javier, always straightforward, shook his head. "I never imagined the girl I once chased from my restaurant would become this. I'm proud of you, girl." Mia hugged each of them, feeling deep happiness. "All of this was only possible because you believed in me. Thank you for being my family." After wrapping up the tour, Mia decided to return to Seville, to La Luz Dorada, needing time to reflect and recharge. The news of her return spread quickly, and when she walked through the door, she was greeted with a warm round of applause from customers and staff, as if she had never left. "Welcome back, star," Marco said, running to hug her. "Thank you, Marco," Mia replied, smiling. "I needed to come back home." Mr. Javier, ever the stern figure, appeared behind the counter. "I hope you're not here to rest too much, girl. The stage is still yours." Mia laughed, feeling truly at home. That night, she stepped onto the small stage of the restaurant for the first time in months. There were no grand lights or screens, just her guitar, and the people who had always supported her. Before I start, I want to say something, she said, looking at the crowd. This place isn't just where I started, it's where I learned what truly matters: love, support, and connection with people. So tonight is for all of you. When she played, the restaurant was filled with nostalgia and emotion, her voice now more confident yet carrying the same soul and sincerity. Marco, watching from the side, turned to Mr. Javier and said, "Do you still think it was a mistake to let her sing here that night?" Mr. Javier replied with a slight smile, "No, it was the best decision I've ever made." On a special night, Mia organized an event at La Luz Dorada to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of her first performance there. The restaurant was adorned with photos from her journey, each corner telling a part of her story. Old and new customers filled the space, even journalists came to document the moment. "Tonight is more than a celebration of my career," Mia said, looking at the audience. "It's a celebration of gratitude. Everything I've achieved started here, with people who believed in me, and that will never be forgotten." She sang her most famous songs but also introduced a new composition, written for the occasion, speaking of love, perseverance, and the power of human connections. When she finished, the room fell silent, then erupted into applause, tears of joy in many eyes. Marco, holding a glass of wine, joined her on stage. "I don't know if I have the eloquence you do, Mia, but I think I speak for everyone when I say we are immensely proud of you." The audience agreed, clapping enthusiastically. Mr. Javier, while maintaining his austere demeanor, stood and raised his glass to her. "To the girl who changed this restaurant and our lives." Mia, moved, took the microphone again. "You are my family, my heart. No award, no grand stage can compare to the love I've received here. Thank you for helping me believe in myself." After the event, as the restaurant began to empty, Mia went backstage where her mother and Marco were waiting. Alejandro was on the phone, organizing her next career steps but also smiling at the surrounding excitement. "It was perfect, Mia," Marco said, handing her a small, delicate box. "What's this?" she asked. "Just something to remind you of all this, even when you're in packed stadiums." Inside was a star-shaped pendant, reminiscent of the brooch he'd given her at the beginning. She smiled, tears returning. "It's beautiful. Thank you, Marco. You deserve all of this and more," her mother said, hugging her tightly. "No matter where you go, we'll always be with you, my love." In the following months, Mia not only expanded her international career but also started a foundation for talented youth in vulnerable situations, inspired by her story. "I want to be for them what you were for me," she explained in an interview, mentioning Marco, Mr. Javier, and her mother as her greatest supporters. La Luz Dorada became a cultural landmark in Seville, known as the place where the star was born. Marco, now an official partner, ensured the restaurant retained its warm essence, celebrating Mia's legacy daily. Years later, Mia returned to La Luz Dorada with a new project, to record a live album right where it all started, surrounded by friends and family. During the recording, she dedicated special songs to Marco, Mr. Javier, Alejandro, and her mother. "This place will always be my home," she said at the end. "No matter where I go, I always come back home." The album was a success, but for Mia, the greatest reward was seeing the smiles of everyone who supported her journey. And so, Mia continued to spread her music around the world, but her heart remained rooted in the small restaurant in Seville where it all began. Her story became more than just a tale of success, it became a symbol of how kindness, courage, and genuine bonds can turn the impossible into reality. If this story touched you, leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and don't leave just yet. The next video appearing on your screen has an unexpected twist you won't want to miss. Click now to watch. This script maintains the narrative's length and integrity, adapting it for a YouTube audience with engagement prompts at the end, all while ensuring it does not infringe on copyright through fair use by altering characters, setting, and names to create an original retelling. As Mia's career continued to soar, she often returned to Seville, not just for concerts but to reconnect with her roots. One autumn evening, with the leaves turning gold outside La Luz Dorada, Mia decided to surprise everyone by showing up unannounced. The restaurant was packed, the buzz of conversation filling the air, but when she walked in, the atmosphere changed. Patrons erupted into applause, and the staff, including Marco, who was now managing the restaurant, beamed with pride. "Look who decided to grace us with her presence," Marco called out, his voice laced with the familiar warmth that always made Mia feel at home. Mia hugged him tightly. "I couldn't stay away too long." Mr. Javier, now with a bit more gray in his hair but the same stern yet kind eyes, approached. "Back from conquering the world, are you?" "Only to recharge at the place where my heart is," Mia smiled, noticing the new murals on the walls, depicting her journey from a street singer to an international star. They spent the evening sharing stories. Mia listened to tales of new regulars who had come to La Luz Dorada because of her, and she shared anecdotes from her tours, the different cultures she'd experienced, and the music that connected her to people across the globe. Later, Mia announced a special event to the crowd. "I've decided to do something different this time. I'm hosting a songwriting workshop here, at La Luz Dorada. Anyone who has a story to tell through music, young or old, can join." The restaurant filled with excitement. This initiative was Mia's way of giving back, to help others find their voice just as she had. Over the next few days, the restaurant transformed into a creative hub where aspiring musicians shared lyrics, melodies, and dreams. During one of these sessions, a young boy, no more than 12, named Leo, played a melancholic tune on his guitar. His voice was raw but filled with emotion. Mia, recognizing the spark she once had, kneeled beside him. "Leo, that was beautiful. Tell me about your song." Leo, shy and hesitant at first, explained, "It's about my dad. He's not here anymore, but I feel him when I play." Mia's eyes welled up. "Music is a powerful bridge, Leo. Keep playing, keep singing, and you'll keep that connection alive." By the end of the workshop, Mia had not only inspired the local community but also decided to mentor Leo, arranging for him to perform at her next big concert in Madrid, introducing him to the world just as she had been introduced. When the concert night came, Leo stood backstage, his guitar clutched in his trembling hands. "I'm scared," he admitted. Mia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Everyone here tonight, including me, was scared at some point. But remember, it's not about being perfect, it's about being real. Now go out there and share your story." As Leo stepped onto the stage, the crowd welcomed him with a warmth that only Mia's fans could muster. His performance was heartfelt, and the audience's reaction was a testament to the power of music to heal and unite. Post-concert, Mia reflected on her journey, now intertwined with Leo's. "We're all just stories, aren't we? And music lets us live those stories out loud," she told a journalist, her words echoing across social media, inspiring a new wave of musicians. Back in Seville, La Luz Dorada had become more than just a restaurant, it was a beacon for dreamers. Mia had turned it into a place where art was not only consumed but created, where every Thursday night was an open mic, giving voices to the voiceless. Years later, on a crisp evening, the restaurant hosted another significant event. It was the opening of the Mia Morales Music Academy, funded by Mia's foundation. The academy aimed to provide free music education to underprivileged youth. The event was attended by local officials, celebrities, and, most importantly, the children who would benefit from this new venture. Mia, standing beside a plaque that read, "Where Dreams Begin," spoke to the crowd. "This isn't just about music, it's about hope, about giving you a voice when the world tries to silence you. Remember, no matter where you come from, your song has a place here." As the ceremony concluded, the young students from the academy performed, their voices a chorus of potential, echoing the sentiment of Mia's own journey. Marco, now a father himself, watched with his daughter on his shoulders. One day, sweetheart, you might be up there too, singing your story. Mr. Javier, watching from the back, his face a mix of pride and nostalgia, whispered to himself, what a legacy. Mia's story had transcended her, becoming a narrative of community, transformation, and the endless possibilities of music. Her life, once a tale of struggle, now served as a beacon of inspiration, ensuring that the light of La Luz Dorada would shine for generations to come. If you've been moved by Mia's journey, give this video a like, subscribe for more stories that inspire, and comment below about what part of this story resonated with you. Don't forget to click on the video next in line for another story that might just change your perspective. Thanks for joining us on this journey. Let's keep sharing stories that matter. This additional content extends the narrative, focusing on Mia's legacy in her giving back to the community, ensuring the story's themes of inspiration, connection, and the transformative power of music are emphasized. Remember, this is designed for a YouTube script, encouraging viewer interaction with likes, comments, and subscriptions.